Venture capital is really interesting. I mean, these guys can provide a huge amount of value. If you get the right venture capital firm behind you, they can do successive rounds. They can, obviously have the capital. They have connections. They give you fantastic advice. They can really launch a company successfully and, take you public at the right time or get acquired much later on down the road. So incredibly additive. I think that's key. I think it's also important to note that, venture capital firms and the companies they invest in have different interests, right? And it's really important to understand what the venture capital firm's interest is so you understand what their motivations are. Their motivations are basically they want home runs, right? In terms of their IRR, they want home runs. So 2 out of 10 companies in their portfolio they invest in are going to be the next Zooms of the world, right? The next Googles, next breakout home runs. So they're always looking for those. And then you have like out of a portfolio of 10, so 2 home runs, 3 are going to be, they're doing good. They're going to get sold and they'll get a good return. And 5 are going to be total washes for them. So half are going to be total washes. So if you're in that wash area, the neglected area, it's challenging to get funding in the future because they're typically not going to fund you, your VC firm. And it's hard to get any other funding if your VC firm does not fund you. So it's, as long as you keep that in mind, it's potentially a great source of financing. I think right now the firms are, VC firms are typically doing triage right now. So it's a bit challenging for them as well. I think in terms of the type of firms they invest in, it's important to note that they're looking for, as I said, home runs. So, if they've got a choice of a firm that has $100 million in their projections in year 3 versus $500 million in year 5, they're going to pick $500 million in year 5 because they want the next unicorn. And it's not as though they believe in all the projections, but it really goes to the ambition of the team. If the team is ambitious enough to believe that in 5 years they can become $500 million, the next unicorn, then that is good. If they're just, too humble of a team, they're not going to invest. In terms of seeking out VC firms, it's really important to do a lot of research on the VC firms to make sure that they're hitting, they're actually going A rounds if you're doing A rounds, or B rounds if you're doing B rounds. Some of these guys only do late stage, only do B rounds, C rounds, D rounds. Some of these guys will only do A rounds. So if you're doing an A round as an example, you want to make sure that you hit VC firms that are doing an A round. You also want to focus on VC firms that are in your sector. So if you're doing back to e-commerce software or telemedicine, you want to search out firms that are actually have a lot of experience in e-commerce software. So that's important. And then the other aspect is, it's important to go to the partner level in VC firms and venture capital firms. I'll just give you an example. So if one of the venture capital firm partners has invested in Zoom, and you can find this out on Crunchbase, by the way. You look at Crunchbase, go to Zoom, you'll find all the funding rounds for free in Crunchbase, and typically you can find the partner that invested in Zoom in the A round. So that guy's a hero in his VC firm, right, in his venture capital firm. So if you're, call it a Zoom equivalent, and you go to that partner in the VC firm and say, hey, here's a Zoom-like company that we think is going to be fantastic like Zoom, he's going to be much more receptive because he made a lot of money in the same sector. And the other aspect is he already knows the sector. So you only have to sell once. You sell the company, not twice, the sector and the company. So, their sector expertise at the firm level and specifically the partner level is really important. It's a lot easier to sell if you do your research, not just a buckshot approach. It's important to do some investigation in them. So, reverse due diligence, it's called technically reverse due diligence, where you've made the selection, you're picking this one particular VC firm. You want to make sure that, you do the research on them as well, particularly less known firms, but even known firms. You want to talk to at least a couple of different, investees, companies they've invested in, to make sure that you are aware that, they have good reputation, they had value add, and you've done your due diligence. That's important.